Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to make this smaller version of this wooden Christmas tree. I have videos showing how to make the bigger version, so today we're going to be making this one, which is 27 inches tall. All you need to build this is an 8-foot 2x4, 2.5 inch wood screws, tape measure, impact driver, drill, and then we need a miter saw that can cut angles. The only angles we're going to be cutting are 22.5 and 45 degrees. I'm going to post the plan showing all the dimensions for this build. You can pause the video and come back to it to reference if you have any questions. To make it simpler, I've labeled different pieces of this tree. As we build it, we're going to cut 2 pieces at a time. We're going to start from the top down. So we're going to cut piece A and B first. Let's go over to the saw and make those cuts. All right, everyone. To start the project, we need to set the angle on the miter saw. We're going to set it to 22.5 degrees. I just adjusted this angle. I'll show you what that looks like closer up. So as you can see, the saw is at a 22.5 degree angle. And now we are going to make our first cut on this board. So we want to waste as little material as possible when making these cuts. So we're going to line the saw up, come down and make our cut. Okay, we just made our 22.5 degree cut. So now I want to flip this, and we're going to take our tape measure. We're going to hook it on the edge, and we want to measure out 11 inches. So I'll show you guys what this looks like. This is the cut we made, 22.5 degrees. Our tape measure is on the long point of that edge, and I've come back and marked 11 inches. Now for this next cut, we want to adjust our angle to 45 degrees. So as you can see, we are at a steeper angle, which is 45 degrees. We want to cut this 11-inch piece at 45 degrees. So just like that, we have our piece cut. Now we're going to take this, cut our next piece. All throughout this video, I'm going to leave the piece after I cut it in the same direction, and I'll tell you when you have to flip it for measuring. So we just made that cut. We'll flip it. Now we want to measure back 8 3/4 of an inch and make a mark. So I'll show you guys what this looks like. Again, this is our 45 degree angle. The tape measure is on the long part of the angle, and we made a mark at 8 3/4 inch. Now for this cut, we want to set our saw back at 22.5 degrees, and we're going to lock it in place because we no longer have to adjust the angle. The rest of the cuts are all going to be at 22.5 degrees. Let's make this cut. There we go, we have that piece cut. Now we have our 2 pieces. The 45 degree angle, we have piece A, which is the first one we cut, and piece B, which is the shorter one. We want them to line up just like that and make a triangle. So now we're going to screw these 2 pieces together. This will be the top of the tree. When screwing, I recommend to pre-drill first. If you pre-drill, it pulls all the joints tight. If you skip pre-drilling, you might have loose joints. So let's screw this all together. Just like that, we have piece A and B cut. As you can see, we've got this perfectly flush. So next, we're going to move on to pieces C and D. The following 4 pieces are identical. C, D, E, F are all the exact same measurements, but we're going to cut them 2 at a time. So part C and part D. So back to the saw. This is the way we left the cut, 22.5 degrees. We're going to take our tape measure, we're going to hook it onto the short part of that angle, and we're going to mark out 8 3/4 inch. I'll show you guys exactly what this looks like. Our cut here is 22.5 degrees. We've got our tape hooked onto the top, and we have measured out 8 3/4 inch. There's our piece. So 8 3/4 inches from the short side to the long side. We're gonna make the exact same piece. Okay, exact same 8 3/4 inch. Cut this. And then we will go install these 2 pieces. We've got the 2 pieces we cut. I've got them oriented where the points are facing up. They are going to go onto the tree just like that. As you can see, we have an overlap here. So we need to measure this overlap and make sure that we are consistent and accurate. This is an 1.5 inch overlap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece, lay it down flat. So the short side of the angle is facing up, and we want an 1.5 inch overlap. So I'm going to put my tape on the edge, mark 1.5 inch. I'm going to do the same for this piece. And then one thing I like to do is I like to grab a square so that I can transfer this line straight across so that I have a straight line to follow. So this is going to go on. Our line is the overlap. It's going to go on just like that. I'll bring the camera in and show you guys this step. So we have the short side of the angle, and as you can see, I'm hooked on there, and we've marked 1.5 inch. So then when we install this piece, we have our line. We want it to sit flush, just like that. So now we can go ahead and screw this together. Don't forget to pre-drill when you're screwing it together. We're using our 2.5 inch wood screws. Make sure that all the boards are sitting flush on edge and everything is nice and tight together. Every time we screw on, we want to keep the screws on the inside. That way they won't be seen. If you screw from the outside, you're going to have visible screw heads that we don't want. Now we're going to cut E and F, which are identical to the last 2 pieces we cut. Okay, so again, 8 3/4 inch. We're cutting 2 of these pieces. It is 8 3/4 inch from the short point to the long point, just like the last 2 pieces that we had cut. We have the pieces we just cut. The tips are facing up. They're going to go on like that. And again, we want an 1.5 inch overlap. So let's go ahead, mark the 1.5 inch. Next, line the piece up so that the 1.5 inch is overlapping. Pre-drill and screw it together just like we did with the last 2 pieces. Always put 2 screws in each piece. That will keep it together well. Then we're going to move on and cut pieces G and H. To the saw, we're going to flip our piece. So we have the long point of the angle up. We're going to come back and we are going to mark 14.5 inches, and then we will make this cut. So I'll bring the camera in just to show you guys this so there's no confusion. There's our angle, 22.5 degrees. We're hooked on the top, and our mark is at 14.5. And then we're going to flip our piece again, and we are going to come here and measure 7 1/4. And I will show you guys what that looks like just so there's no confusion again. So we're hooked on the top part of the angle, and we are marked at 7 1/4. Now we can make that cut. And just like that, we have our last two pieces. The rest of this is scrap. So we have the two pieces we just cut. We want them to be lined up where the angles are all on the same sides. And then we want to find the middle of these two pieces. So let's start with the long piece. This is measured at 14.5 inches. So the middle is going to be 7.25. We'll make a mark there. This piece here was cut at 7.25. So the middle of that is going to be 3 5/8 of an inch. I'll show you what that looks like. There's one last thing you need to do. On the small piece, we need to transfer the middle up to the top. So you can use a square and draw a line straight up. I'll bring the camera in just to show you guys the measurements closer. So the small piece, our mark is at 3 5/8, and then our long piece, 7.25. And then as you can see, I've transferred the line straight up so that it lines up and it's directly in the middle. We're going to screw that together next. So as you can see, I have 3 screws. You could put 2 more in on each corner. It's not necessary. Now we're going to take the tree and we're going to screw the bottom end. So let's start on one side. We want this to line up nicely. So we're going to line that up, pre-drill. Just like that, we have a nice smooth angle, and then we want to do the same. So as you can see, this might not line up perfectly, but you should be able to slide the tree so that it's lined up, and then we'll screw that together. And just like that, we've got our tree finished. It is 26.5 inches tall. I hope that this was an easy tutorial for you to follow along with. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. I try to answer them all. You can also follow me on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Thanks a lot, guys. And if you want to see some of the other videos showing different sizes of trees, check out the other videos on my channel.